And now, part 2 of Jack Kilby's 3-part conversation with Marcus Tenney. You have stepped to the front of the line.
Did, man, like Spacebomb just built that whole, their own studio.
Yeah, the stuff that those guys are doing, they're interesting too, just because they have a connection, through Glassnote. That's literally connecting Glassnote records to the music community in Richmond.
Wow.
Which, who knows if that connection would have happened otherwise. And,
right.
The same thing with all of the other people that do projects and do deals with other outside folks. It just connects you to, and not only did they do business with Glassnote, they brought their business here and they pumped it into their label. Now they're building a studio. They stayed in Richmond. I'm sure Spacebomb didn't have to stay in Richmond. They could have went somewhere else, but they wanted to stay here. And they're having community events and they're having artists come through, and they've been doing that for a while. And stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems that, the community is still intact all these years. And it's super, that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Hard to do that.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, that's the challenging thing up here. I'm still in Virginia, but, being so close to DC and then like to Maryland, it's like, sometimes I just wonder if it's like folks don't want to sit on the Beltway, to have to like come around to the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Or, it's like, like Wale said, man, DC is a very territorial place,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very proud to have like grown up near DC, like near enough to be able to be, very influenced by it, but like, hey, 2 up, 2 down, until I die, especially because of so many of the other amazing musicians that have come out of Virginia, D'Angelo, Pharrell, Nate Smith, the list goes on with so many of the artists that we have here. But so that's definitely one thing that I'm trying to bring, at least to like my studio up here, is that, community vibe that I felt, when I was in Charlottesville, that I see and have experienced a little bit in the Richmond scene, because a lot of times folks like you said, you need a place to record a demo, with the modest amount of scratch, as like a new person. It's like, you gotta have somewhere to go.
Having folks like just willing to work, you know what I mean? Like just willing to just be like, all right, so, I normally do like 400 a day for this, but let's just do like 200 a day, and then you owe me 3 sessions. You know what I mean? Like, having stuff like that, I feel like those are the bending of the rules that have to exist in order for people to go after what they want to go after. Just because it doesn't work any other way. If the walls are too hard, you're not gonna be able to do anything.
Yep.
You gotta. There has to be some way. There has to be some way to please passage.
Yeah, no, especially as a new artist, when you're trying to do so much to break through. I mean, it's like, you do sort of like need certain people to, be able to be willing to be flexible and to just be like, hey, I believe in you and or your music. And so like, I would rather try to make this work for the benefit of all of us rather than me trying to be, stuck up about like $100, right? Because it's like, if we would really all just support each other, then it's going to come around. But
it's going to come around.
There's so many of the folks down there,
It's also like I'm willing to work for it. I'm willing to work for it, but like, I just need to know what I'm working for. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times with this music industry shit, it just, sorry. You allowed to curse on here?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Okay. I ain't know. With the music industry stuff, it just seems like the terra firma always gets moved. You know what I mean? The goalpost is always shifted.
Yep.
Based on what the trend is. And the trends are set by the most successful. You know what I mean? Which is tough. That's a hard thing. The trends are set by the most successful. So the trend, that's the easiest rite of passage. But it's like everyone everyone who's trying to work this stuff out is still working out the infrastructure of the situation. And if there's no one there to help guide them, or no one there to explicitly lay out what the terms are, there's got to be someone there who's been through it and like understands what's going on. Or else you literally choke the system off before it even gets started. Because if you have if the streaming numbers keep getting higher and higher and higher, this person did 10 billion streams, or 5 billion, 6 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion, coming from zero, your chances of getting in the playing field are getting smaller and smaller, just because, that top number's going up, but also so are all the other numbers. Right. Pretty soon it's going to be like, you're not going to be, I remember when it was like, when you get 5,000 subscribers on this platform, then you're really doing something. Now it's like, when you get 20,000, you're really doing something. So when does that bottom floor number become too high for anyone to reach? While at the same time, no one in the communities is really helping out starting artists who are starting out, because, either they can't because costs in their particular area are just too high, or, they had a very rough upstart and, they want to pay it forward in a sense. But
right.
If there's none of,
right.
if all of those things go the wrong way, then the music industry is going to stop dead in its tracks, just because there's going to be no new, fresh ideas feeding it,
Right.
Like in Richmond, the way that Richmond came about musically was that there's like a lot of, well, at least this wave of musicians, the way that these people came about as a whole, I think, was because there was no one telling us how to do these types of things. But Richmonders are ambitious people. And so, like, we just kind of figured it out. Like, this guy had, Lance had the studio, Pace had the idea, so they got together and they started the brass band. And then, that band's been to Europe, I don't know how many times, 6, 7 albums later, played all kind of venues, played all over the world,
Right.
And that, that's crazy to think about that. But it's like, it's because, and then thinking about what the band is a brass band that doesn't play brass band music. It plays kind of more produced composition.
Mm-hmm.
And so to hear that, that's kind of like, wow, how did you guys come up with that? And it's like, I don't know. That was just what they thought was cool. So they just did it. And so, but if there was like a tradition of brass bands, you probably wouldn't have had something that sounded like that, because it would have gotten pushed away as illegitimate, maybe.
Right.
Same way we do with straight ahead. If it's not speaking the language in a certain text with certain nuance, it's kind of ill-informed in a sense. And so not having those things right there kind of opened it up to allow us to experiment in a lot of different ways. And so that's how Butcher Brown came about. That's how, I don't know if that may not be technically how Butcher Brown came about, but musically that's definitely what's going on. It's just a merging of different styles, mm-hmm. because there's no rules. As long, the people that we looked up to, they break the rules all the time, but they do it in the most intelligent, tasteful way you can think of. And then it makes you reevaluate whether or not that needs to be a rule. Not,
mm-hmm.
Should we vilify these folks for breaking that rule? Does this really need to be a rule? And so that's where Butcher Brown came from, Space Bomb, Matt White's concept. That's kind of, when you have someone who's very ambitious and who is also very resourceful, putting those two things together, you come out with things like that. And teamwork, all in there. Trey Pollard, Vincent Chancel, they all do great work over there. And then DJ Harrison, too, on the Yellowstone records. Yellowstone studio people.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same thing. It's all the DNA of just champions, it's just when you're open and you're willing to adjust in the face of problems, and when you're willing to work with the community instead of trying to work against, while at the same time working hard for what you want to see and what you want to do, then everything else just kind of, everything else moves out of the way. Whenever you see somebody like beeline power walking through a room, like, you move out of the way.
Right.
You just kind of don't even think about it. He's like, this dude is trying to get through here, or this woman needs me to move right now.
Right.
So I'm just going to do it. As a musician and as a person in the world, you have to be trained in order to be like that. You know what I mean? Nobody learns how to power walk just because they learn how to power walk. They're power walking because there's a force drawing them to wherever they're trying to go. And they're doing what they have to do to get to where they're going. And so, me, I don't have all of the answers. I never did. probably never ever will, judging by history. So it's like, why wouldn't I reach out to a friend of mine and see, hey man, what do you think about this? You know, just kind of bounce ideas off of each other, keep each other in line, you know. And then when you see the whole fabric of everything coming up, then it's like, oh, well, the sum of what we just did is much greater than the individual part. And so that to me means that it has to, that's the key right there, because it brings so much more sunshine when everyone puts their hands together and works hard together. We get way more of an impact. And that's what we wanted from the start. You know, you want to make music that leaves an impact, just like all the music we're listening to. All of those 60s Blue Note records, all of these Louis Armstrong records, and, you know, all of this stuff leaves an impact from guys that, like, I never knew and never will know. Don't know anything about them, really. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of guys I never met, never got the chance to talk to. Their records and their musical ideas were put together with the help of other people, and it left an impact that was great enough for me to be listening to it 50, 60 years later. That's, you know, that's kind of what we're shooting for here, I feel like.
And that's, the one thing that's nice now is that I feel like my struggle right now is that, like, no one in my band lives near me. At least 2 hours away. Between you and Charles and, you know, John or the cats that are in New York, you know, but at least, so I'm trying to reevaluate, like, how is it that I can still have, and this is not to sort of say that I, you know, dislike, you know, any of the players in the DC community, but we've all got the folks that we sort of, like, want to work with, or the folks that you find that you just vibrate on the same level with, right? And so, for me at least, it's just, okay, how can I now write some stuff and be able to keep these folks involved, you know, from so far away? And that's where I feel really lucky, at least, to have, you know, a little studio here, and that, you know, as I start to try to write, you know, some more material, that I'd be able to send off ideas, have someone send back either their feedback or an addition, you know, to whatever it is. And in fact, that I could send you a track, you know, and say, like, hey, well, you know, what are you hearing on this? You know, da-da-da-da-da. And we could go back and forth with it, you know, a few times until we find something right, you know, rather than having to drive down the highway, which is cool. But yeah, man, it's just like, it really takes, you know, a family of folks, you know, to really have that same collective vision, you know, of what it is that you want, you know, and the sacrifice that it takes individually to be able to make that, you know, the grander project work.
It makes it all, it also makes it easier to navigate too, just because it's good to have friends around, people that you worked with before.
Oh yeah.
Time that you can reference back to. So that makes it easier, especially as an improviser, like, you know, sort of a lonely experience. You know, we're learning an instrument simultaneously with learning music, with learning business, with learning social culture, with learning life. You know, that becomes hard. You know, it can put stresses on you in lots of different ways, obviously. And so it's good to have other people who are not only going through the same stresses, having different thoughts and different reactions to those same situations, but then also other people who come with different solutions and different options to solving certain things.
Yep.
Having that comfort there, and also, you know, being in a musical community of other people doing other things also cross-pollinates in certain ways, like dealing with marketing or dealing with promotion. Different styles of music have different ways they go about those ideas as well. So the different dimensions of having a community, to me, is the way to go. It's just so many more sides to the prism. Once things go in, they get broken up in so many different ways, and they get put back together in a way that works for so many different people, because you had so many different voices helping you build it.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I wanted to talk to you about the amazing work that you did, you know, on the Jupiter recording. And I only wish that I could have had you on more tracks on the record, man. I mean, I feel so lucky that you were able to do so many of the gigs with the band, like leading up to the record, you know, to be able to have someone that, first of all, to be able to know that I could write basically whatever I want and that you were going to be able to play it. It's certainly a good feeling. But at least in terms of, like, yeah, I mean, he could probably hit this. And
yeah, I could take a college try for sure.
Right, yeah, college try. But man, I mean, it really meant a lot to, you know,